The silent orchestra. Ethan Walsh stared at the reflection in his bathroom mirror, straightening his bow tie with practiced precision. At 42, his once jet-black hair now featured distinguished streaks of silver at the temples. The Boston Symphony Orchestra awaited their maestro, but all Ethan could think about was his daughter's empty breakfast plate. Again. "Penny?" he called, walking down the hallway of their Beacon Hill brownstone. "The sitter will be here soon. Did you eat? Anything?" 8-year-old Penny sat at the kitchen island, her legs dangling from the stool, blonde hair falling in her face as she pushed cereal around her bowl. She didn't look up or acknowledge his presence. She hadn't spoken a single word in the 11 months since the accident that took her mother's life. "Just try to eat something before school, okay?" Ethan said, his voice softening. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, feeling the familiar ache when she tensed at his touch. The therapist had called it selective mutism, triggered by trauma. Ethan called it the wall he couldn't climb, no matter how hard he tried. The doorbell rang. Mrs. Abernathy, right on time. The elderly neighbor watched Penny before school 3 mornings a week when Ethan had early rehearsals. "Remember parent-teacher conference at 3?" Mrs. Abernathy reminded him. "Brookfield Academy doesn't like tardiness, even from celebrity conductors." Ethan nodded, grabbed his leather portfolio, and hesitated at the door. "I love you, Penny girl," he said, the nickname catching in his throat. His daughter's eyes flickered toward him for just a moment before returning to her untouched breakfast. Hours later, Ethan stood before the orchestra, baton raised, guiding 60 musicians through Dvořák's New World Symphony. Once, this had been everything. The swell of strings, the precision of percussion, the transcendent moment when individual instruments became something greater. But lately, even music felt hollow. What good was commanding perfect harmony when he couldn't reach his own daughter? The rehearsal ended early, giving Ethan unexpected time before the parent-teacher meeting. He decided to arrive at Brookfield Academy before dismissal to observe Penny unseen, something Dr. Lambert had suggested might provide insights into her school behavior. Brookfield occupied a former estate, its grounds meticulously landscaped. Ethan parked his Audi away from the main entrance and walked across the manicured lawn. Through the window of the school's small auditorium, he spotted a man kneeling beside the grand piano. Not a teacher, judging by his work clothes. The groundskeeper, perhaps? Beside him sat Penny, her small fingers hovering over the keys. Ethan froze. The man, Hispanic, mid-30s with kind eyes, was showing Penny something on the piano, and she was watching intently. Then, impossibly, Penny placed her fingers on the keys and played a simple melody. The groundskeeper smiled warmly, saying something Ethan couldn't hear. And then, miracle of miracles, Penny's lips moved in response. She was speaking to him. Ethan's portfolio slipped from his fingers, scattering sheet music across the grass. His daughter, who hadn't uttered a sound in nearly a year, was communicating with the school groundskeeper. The man who trimmed hedges and mopped floors had somehow reached a place Ethan had been trying desperately to access. "Mr. Walsh?" A voice startled him. Headmistress Porter approached with a concerned expression. "Your conference isn't for another 20 minutes. "Who is that?" Ethan pointed toward the auditorium, his voice barely controlled. "The man with my daughter." "Oh, that's Rafael Mendoza, our groundskeeper," she replied. "Is something wrong?" Everything, Ethan thought. Or perhaps nothing at all. He just didn't know which yet. "No," he said finally, collecting his scattered music. "Nothing's wrong, I'm just early." As he straightened, Ethan caught another glimpse. Through the window. Penny was smiling now, actually smiling, as Raphael showed her something else on the piano. It was the first genuine smile he'd seen from his daughter since the night his wife Julia never came home. And in that moment, Ethan Walsh, who commanded standing ovations in concert halls worldwide, felt completely and utterly outperformed. I'll continue with parts 2 to 5, making them a bit longer than the first part. Part 2. Hidden Melodies. The revelation that Penny had spoken to Raphael haunted Ethan for days. Each morning, he dropped his daughter at Brookfield Academy's ornate entrance, watching her small shoulders slump beneath her backpack as she disappeared inside. Each evening, he returned to the same silence that had engulfed their home since Julia's accident. But something had changed. Where there had been only questions without answers, now there was Rafael Mendoza, a mystery Ethan was determined to solve. On Thursday, Ethan canceled his afternoon rehearsal with the second violins and arrived at Brookfield an hour before dismissal. He parked his car behind the administrative building and made his way to the auditorium, careful to remain unseen. Through a side entrance, he slipped inside, concealing himself behind heavy velvet curtains. Raphael entered first, carrying a small toolbox. He checked his watch, then began tuning the grand piano with practiced movements. 10 minutes later, soft footsteps approached and Penny appeared in her plaid uniform, her face lighting up at the sight of Raphael. "Hola, pequeña música," Raphael greeted warmly. "Ready for our special time?" Ethan held his breath, waiting. Penny didn't speak, but she nodded enthusiastically, more animation than she'd shown at home in months. "I brought something today," Raphael said, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew a small, carved wooden whistle shaped like a bird. "My grandfather made this for me when I was scared to speak after my parents died. He said some feelings are too big for words, but music always has room for everything we feel." Penny took the whistle, turning it over in her small hands with reverence. She placed it to her lips and blew softly, producing a sweet, clear note. "Beautiful." Raphael smiled. "Now, shall we continue with our song?" What followed left Ethan speechless. Raphael guided Penny through simple exercises on the piano, and though she didn't speak, she responded to his gentle instructions. When she made mistakes, she didn't withdraw as she did at home. She tried again. After the piano, Raphael unpacked a violin from a weathered case and played a hauntingly beautiful melody Ethan didn't recognize. "This was my mother's favorite," Raphael explained to Penny. "When I play it, I remember how she smiled. Do you have songs that remind you of your mother?" Penny hesitated, then whispered something so quiet Ethan couldn't hear. Raphael nodded solemnly. "Yes. It's okay to miss those songs too much to play them right now. Someday, though, they might become your favorite way to remember her." For 30 minutes, Ethan watched as the groundskeeper reached his daughter through music in ways that expensive therapists had failed to do. When their session ended, Raphael packed away his violin with the care of someone handling a precious artifact, not the casual handling of a hobby instrument. "Remember our secret, pequeña música," Raphael said as Penny prepared to leave. "The music is always inside you, even when you can't find the words." Penny tucked the wooden whistle into her pocket and, to Ethan's astonishment, reached out to hug Raphael before scampering away. After Penny left, Raphael remained, shoulders slightly slumped as he closed the piano lid. Something in his posture spoke of loss, a language Ethan understood all too well. The next day, Ethan called Brookfield's administration office. "I'd like information about your groundskeeper, Rafael Mendoza," he said. "How long has he worked there? What's his background?" "Mr. Mendoza has been with us 3 years, the secretary replied. "He's an exemplary employee, though I'm afraid we don't discuss personnel matters." "It's just—" Ethan hesitated. "My daughter seems to have formed a connection with him." There was a pause on the line. "That's not surprising. The children all adore Mr. Mendoza. Before he came here, I believe he was quite accomplished. There was something in the newspaper years ago, a tragedy of some sort. But really, Mr. Walsh, I couldn't say more." That evening, Ethan searched online, finding only fragments. Rafael Mendoza, once a promising violinist with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, disappeared from the classical music scene 7 years ago following a family tragedy. A single photo showed a younger Rafael in formal attire, violin tucked under his chin, eyes closed in concentration, a man lost in his music, the same expression Ethan had seen when Rafael played for Penny. For the next week, Ethan arranged his schedule to secretly observe these meetings. Each day, he witnessed Rafael patiently drawing his daughter out through music, never pushing her to speak, but creating a space where communication became possible. And each day, Penny seemed to carry a little of that light home with her, though she still maintained her silence with Ethan. On Friday afternoon, as Ethan prepared to leave his hiding place, he accidentally knocked over a music stand. The crash echoed through the empty auditorium. Rafael looked up sharply, his eyes meeting Ethan's across the room. "Mr. Walsh," he said quietly, no surprise in his voice. "I wondered when you would introduce yourself." Ethan stepped forward, a mixture of gratitude and suspicion churning inside him. "How long have you known I was watching?" Rafael carefully placed his violin in its case. "Since the beginning. Penny told me her father was the famous conductor who makes orchestras sing like angels." A sad smile crossed his face. "She says more than you might think." "Why my daughter?" Ethan asked. The question that had consumed him for days finally spoken aloud. "Of all the children at this school, why did you choose to help Penny?" Rafael closed his violin case with a soft click. "I didn't choose her, Mr. Walsh. Some souls recognize each other across the silence. I simply offered what I wish someone had given me when grief stole my voice." Ethan felt the first crack in the wall he had built around his own pain. "And what was that?" Rafael looked at him with eyes that had seen their own share of sorrow. "Permission to speak in whatever language she can manage, even if that language isn't words." Crescendo of truth. The confrontation with Rafael left Ethan with more questions than answers. The groundskeeper had been polite but guarded, excusing himself after their brief exchange with a promise that he meant no harm to Penny. "I'm simply giving her a safe place to remember who she is beneath her grief," Rafael had said. "Music can reach places words cannot." Ethan wanted to believe him. The transformation in Penny during those sessions was undeniable. A flicker of his daughter, returning from whatever dark place had claimed her, yet suspicion lingered. Who was this man really? And why had he abandoned a promising career to sweep floors and tend gardens at a private academy? Saturday morning, Ethan made an impulsive decision. After ensuring Penny was contentedly drawing, in the sunroom with Mrs. Abernathy, he drove to the address he'd found in the school's public staff directory. Rafael's neighborhood was a stark contrast to Ethan's Beacon Hill elegance, modest apartment buildings with laundry hanging from balcony railings and children playing on concrete stoops. Ethan parked across the street from Rafael's building, feeling increasingly foolish. What exactly was he hoping to discover? That the man who had somehow reached his daughter was dangerous? Or perhaps that he wasn't special at all? That Ethan had simply failed as a father in ways a stranger had not? 11 o'clock, Rafael emerged from the building carrying grocery bags. Ethan slouched in his seat, watching as the groundskeeper walked 3 blocks to a small grocery store, where he selected produce with careful consideration. After paying, Rafael continued to a florist, purchasing a modest bouquet before heading to his final destination, Harmony Pines Care Center. Curiosity overcoming his better judgment, Ethan followed Rafael inside the nursing home, hanging back as the receptionist greeted him by name. "Mr. Mendoza, right on time as always. She's having a good day today." Rafael's face brightened. "That's wonderful. I brought her favorite empanadas." Ethan waited several minutes before approaching the reception desk. "I'm looking for Rafael Mendoza's room?" The receptionist gave him a puzzled look. "Mr. Mendoza doesn't live here. He's visiting his grandmother, Mrs. Dolores Mendoza. Are you a friend of the family?" An acquaintance, Ethan replied. From the school where he works. Her expression softened. Oh, how lovely. He's such a dedicated grandson. Room 215, but please don't stay long. Visitors tire her. Ethan found the room easily, pausing outside the open door. Inside, an elderly woman sat in a recliner by the window, a violin case open beside her. Raphael knelt at her feet, arranging flowers in a vase as he spoke to her in gentle Spanish. The old woman's eyes were clouded with cataracts, her hands gnarled with arthritis, but her smile was radiant as Raphael played a lively folk tune on his violin. When he finished, she clapped with delight. Mi estrella brillante, she said proudly. My shining star. Raphael kissed her forehead. Just for you, abuela. Ethan stepped back, something tightening in his chest. This was not what he'd expected to find. As he turned to leave, he bumped into a nurse. Oh, are you here for Mrs. Mendoza? She asked. No, I was just... Ethan hesitated. I work with Raphael. The nurse beamed. Isn't he remarkable? Gave up everything to care for her when she had the stroke. The Chicago Symphony. Can you imagine? All those standing ovations, and now he plays just for her. She taught him, you know. Was quite famous herself in Mexico before immigrating. He left his career? For her? Ethan asked. Completely. 7 years now. Works those 2 jobs to pay for her care, visits every day without fail. She lowered her voice. The doctors said she wouldn't last a year, but love is powerful medicine. He brings her back with that music, every single day. Ethan thanked her and left, his investigation having uncovered something he hadn't anticipated. Not danger, but sacrifice. Not deception, but devotion. Instead of returning home, Ethan drove to the cemetery where Julia was buried. He hadn't visited in months, finding the granite headstone too final, too inadequate to contain all that she had been. Standing before it now, he thought of Raphael playing for his grandmother, keeping her spirit alive through music. I've been doing it all wrong, Jules, he whispered, touching the cold stone. Penny needed me to help her remember you, and instead, I've been hiding from the memory myself. That evening, after tucking Penny into bed, Ethan did something he'd avoided since the funeral. He opened the piano in their living room, Julia's piano, and ran his fingers across the dusty keys. From upstairs came the soft padding of feet. And then Penny appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Would you like to hear a song your mother loved? Ethan asked, his voice rough with emotion. Penny didn't speak, but she crossed the room and climbed onto the bench beside him. As Ethan played the first notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune, he felt his daughter lean against his arm, the first time she had initiated contact in nearly a year. It wasn't words, but it was a beginning. Dissonance and harmony. Monday morning arrived with a newfound determination in Ethan. After dropping Penny at school, he didn't head to Symphony Hall as usual. Instead, he waited until he saw Raphael arrive on his weathered bicycle, then approached him in the staff parking area. Mr. Mendoza, he called. May I speak with you? Raphael secured his bicycle, his expression cautious. Mr. Walsh, is everything all right with Penny? That's what I wanted to discuss. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Could we talk somewhere private? They settled on a bench beneath an oak tree, morning sunlight filtering through the leaves. For a moment, neither spoke. I followed you on Saturday, Ethan finally admitted. To the nursing home. Raphael stiffened. I see. I owe you an apology, Ethan continued. I assumed the worst when I should have simply asked why you were helping my daughter. And what did you discover at Harmony Pines? Raphael's voice was carefully neutral. That some people understand the true value of music beyond fame or fortune. Ethan met the other man's gaze. The nurse told me about your grandmother, about your career. You were first chair violin with the Chicago Symphony. A shadow crossed Raphael's face. That was another life. Why did you never mention it? You're not just some groundskeeper. You're a maestro in your own right. Raphael's laugh held no humor. Maestro? No. I am exactly what you see, a man who tends gardens and fixes broken things. He gestured to the school grounds. Here, I am useful. The children don't care about my past accolades. They only know I keep their playground safe and sometimes play music that makes them smile. But you could be performing on stages worldwide, Ethan pressed. Your talent— My talent serves a greater purpose now, Raphael interrupted firmly. My grandmother sacrificed everything to give me opportunities after my parents died. She worked 3 jobs to pay for my lessons, never missing a single recital despite exhaustion. When she needed me, there was no choice to make. Ethan thought of his own relentless ambition, the late-night rehearsals and international tours that had kept him from home even before Julia's death. But surely there's a way to balance both. Your gift shouldn't be hidden. Raphael studied him thoughtfully. Mr. Walsh, why do you conduct? The question caught Ethan off guard. Because music it's everything. The power to move people, to express what can't be said in words. Yet when was the last time you played simply for joy? Not for an audience or critics, but because the music itself was enough? The question struck a nerve. Ethan couldn't remember. Somewhere along his rise to prominence, music had become achievement rather than expression. Raphael continued gently. Your daughter doesn't need a famous conductor. She needs a father who remembers why music matters in the first place. A defensiveness rose in Ethan. You don't know anything about my relationship with my daughter. I know she keeps a photograph of you conducting inside her music folder, Raphael replied. She traces your face when she thinks no one is watching. She told me once that before her mother died, you used to play dance party songs in the kitchen and spin her until she was dizzy with laughter. The memory hit Ethan like a physical blow. Sunday mornings with Julia making pancakes, Ethan at the portable speaker playing ridiculous pop songs, Penny shrieking with delight as they danced between counters and chairs. How had he forgotten those moments? She hasn't forgotten, Raphael said, reading Ethan's expression. She's waiting for you to remember, too. Tears pricked at Ethan's eyes. How do I reach her? I've tried everything. Not everything, Raphael said kindly. You haven't tried meeting her where she is, in the silence. Sometimes the most powerful music contains the spaces between notes. That evening, Ethan canceled his guest conductor appearance in Philadelphia and took 2 weeks' leave from the Boston Symphony, ignoring the director's protests. Instead, he picked Penny up from school himself, stopping at her favorite ice cream shop on the way home, something they hadn't done since before the accident. At home, Ethan didn't try to make Penny talk. Instead, he simply sat at the piano and played, not the complex classical pieces that had defined his career, but simple melodies from Penny's early childhood. After a while, she slipped onto the bench beside him, hesitantly picking out notes with one finger. Over the next days, a fragile routine developed. Ethan would play, Penny would listen. Sometimes she would join in, sometimes just watch. He placed no expectations, asked no questions. On Thursday, he invited Raphael to dinner, an offering of friendship and gratitude. The groundskeeper arrived with homemade flan and a small wooden flute for Penny. The evening was awkward at first, but as Raphael shared stories of his childhood, in Mexico and his grandmother's musical teachings, the atmosphere warmed. When Raphael played his violin in their living room, Penny curled against Ethan's side on the sofa, a connection so simple yet so profound, it brought tears to his eyes. Later, after Penny had gone to bed, the 2 men sat with glasses of whiskey on the back porch. Your grandmother, Ethan began. The doctor said she wouldn't last a year, but that was 7 years ago? Raphael nodded. Every day is a gift I don't take for granted. Do you ever regret it? The career you gave up? Raphael considered the question. There are moments of wondering what might have been, he admitted. But regret, No, some music isn't meant for concert halls. The most important symphonies of our lives are often played in the quiet moments with those we love. Ethan thought of all he had missed while pursuing standing ovations. I want to help you, he said suddenly. You've done so much for Penny. There must be something I can do in return. Raphael smiled. Perhaps there is. My grandmother's birthday is next month. She always dreamed of hearing a full orchestra again before she... He didn't finish the sentence. But it's an impossible wish. Ethan placed his glass down with sudden clarity. Not impossible at all. Symphony of Second Chances. The following weeks brought a transformation to the Walsh household. The silence that had oppressed them gave way to a different kind of quietness, one filled with purpose and gentle healing. Ethan still conducted the Boston Symphony 3 nights a week, but his days belonged to Penny now. Each afternoon they worked together on what Ethan had come to call Operation Birthday Symphony, a secret project for Dolores Mendoza's 85th birthday. With Raphael's guidance, Ethan selected pieces that held special meaning for the elderly woman. Mexican folk songs she had played as a girl, classical works she had taught Raphael, and a composition Raphael himself had written for her years ago, but never performed with a full orchestra. Are you certain your musicians will agree to this? Raphael asked one evening as they finalized arrangements. Playing in a nursing home isn't exactly Carnegie Hall. Ethan smiled, remembering the enthusiastic response from his orchestra members when he'd explained the situation. You'd be surprised how many musicians remember why they first fell in love with music when given the chance to play for something more meaningful than ticket sales. As the birthday approached, another small miracle unfolded. Penny, inspired by the preparations, began communicating more, not with full sentences yet, but whispered words to Ethan at bedtime, nods and head shakes at breakfast, and once, a spontaneous thank you when he packed her favorite lunch. The morning of Dolores's birthday, Ethan felt a small hand slip into his as they walked toward the nursing home entrance. He looked down to find Penny gazing up at him, her face solemn. "Will I play too, Daddy?" she whispered. It was the first complete sentence she had spoken to him since Julia died. Ethan knelt before her, heart hammering. "Do you want to, Penny girl?" She nodded, clutching the wooden whistle Raphael had given her. "For Mr. Raphael's abuela, and for Mommy too." Inside, Harmony Pine's community room had been transformed. Chairs arranged for a full orchestra faced a special seat of honor decorated with flowers where Dolores would sit. Residents and staff gathered in anticipation, many dressed in their finest clothes for the occasion. When Raphael led his grandmother in, her eyes widened at the sight of 40 musicians in formal attire. "¿Qué es esto?" she gasped, turning to her grandson in confusion. Raphael knelt beside her wheelchair. "A birthday gift, abuela, from friends." Ethan stepped forward, bowing formally to the elderly woman. "Mrs. Mendoza, it is our honor to play for you today. Your grandson has taught me that the true purpose of music is not found in grand concert halls, but in the hearts we touch. Today, we play for you, the maestro who gave the world Raphael's music." Tears filled Dolores's clouded eyes as she reached for Ethan's hand. "Gracias," she whispered. "Muy amable." The concert began with Dvorak, moved through traditional Mexican compositions, and culminated with Raphael joining the orchestra as solo violinist for his own composition, a piece that told the story of his journey from orphaned boy to celebrated musician to devoted grandson. There wasn't a dry eye in the room when he finished. As the final piece approached, Ethan turned to the audience. "We have one more surprise." He gestured to Penny, who stood nervously at the edge of the orchestra. "My daughter Penny would like to play for Mrs. Mendoza as well." A hush fell as the small girl approached, clutching her wooden whistle. Raphael moved to her side, whispering encouragement. Together, they played a simple duet, Raphael's violin soaring while Penny's whistle offered a sweet, clear counter melody. When they finished, Dolores beckoned Penny closer. "Music finds a way," she said in accented English, touching the child's cheek, "even when words are lost." That evening, the three of them, Ethan, Penny, and Raphael, sat in the Walsh's kitchen sharing a meal. The warmth between them had grown into something none of them had expected. Family. "I spoke to the board at Brookfield today," Ethan said, passing Raphael a basket of bread. "They're creating a position for a music therapy program. The salary is 3 times what you make as groundskeeper." Raphael stared at him in disbelief. "You did what?" "You belong in music, Raphael. Not just for my daughter or your grandmother, but for all the children who need what you can give them." Ethan smiled. "Besides, the maintenance supervisor told me, you're terrible at fixing plumbing anyway." Raphael laughed, then grew serious. "I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," Ethan insisted. "It's recognition of your gifts. And selfishly, I want Penny to continue having you in her life." He glanced at his daughter, who was happily drawing at the end of the table. "We both do." 2 months later, Brookfield Academy held its first student recital under the direction of Mr. Mendoza, newly appointed music therapy director. Parents filled the auditorium, programs in hand, whispering excitedly about the transformation in their children under Raphael's guidance. Backstage, Penny Walsh stood in her recital dress, fingers nervously clutching the piano music she had practiced for weeks. Beside her, Raphael adjusted her hair ribbon. "Remember, pequeña música," he said softly. "Music is just another way of speaking from the heart." Ethan approached, camera in hand. "Ready, Penny girl? Grandma Dolores is in the front row." The elderly woman had become a regular visitor to their home, teaching Penny traditional Mexican songs and telling stories of Raphael's childhood. The circle of their unconventional family had expanded to include her, bringing joy to them all. Penny nodded, taking a deep breath. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice small but clear. Speaking now came easier each day. "That's how we know it matters," Ethan said, kneeling to her level. "Your mother would be so proud of you today." As Penny walked onto the stage, Ethan felt Raphael's hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," the younger man said, "for seeing me as more than what I appeared to be." "Thank you," Ethan replied, "for teaching me that the most important music isn't made with instruments, but with love." They watched together as Penny seated herself at the piano, her small face solemn with concentration. The audience fell silent as her fingers touched the keys, beginning the piece she had chosen herself, Julia's favorite nocturne. In the front row, Dolores Mendoza wiped away tears. Beside her sat an empty chair with a single rose, Penny's tribute to her mother. When the final note faded, Penny stood and faced the audience. For the first time since the accident, she spoke in a clear, steady voice. "I played this for my mom, who taught me that love doesn't end when someone leaves, and for my dad and Mr. Raphael, who showed me that family can be found in unexpected places." As applause filled the auditorium, Ethan and Raphael exchanged glances of shared understanding. Sometimes life's most beautiful compositions arise from its deepest sorrows, creating harmonies no one could have imagined, a symphony of second chances, played by hearts that refused to be silenced.